Good afternoon and welcome to the JOURNEO PLC interim results investor presentation. Throughout this recorded presentation, investors will be in listen-only mode. Questions are encouraged. You can be submitted any time via the Q&A tab situated in the right-hand corner of your screen. Just click on Q&A, scroll to the bottom, type your question and press send. The company may not be in a position to answer every question received during the meeting itself. However, the company review all questions submitted today and publish responses where it's appropriate to do so. Before we begin, we'd like to submit the following poll. I'd now like to hand you over to Russ Singleton, CEO. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Thank you, Paul, and good afternoon. Thank you for making time to join us to talk about our H1, our interim results. For those that haven't met us before, I'm Russ. I'm the Chief Exec, and my colleague is Nick Lowe. He's our Chief Financial Officer. And we're both shareholders of the company and been here for quite a few years. Delighted really to introduce the results. Again, for the people that are new to us, JOURNEO is a information systems and technical services business, working predominantly in the UK, but as you will see as we go through the day, we've got some activities now in Denmark, Sweden, and also in the US. Our aim is really to create sort of open systems and integrate them either on board vehicles or in and around the towns and cities. And we're seeing growing adoption of our technology really as a sort of driving force that's leading to growth in our sales pipeline, in our order books, in our revenues. And we're really pleased with the H1 performance, sort of very high level. Our revenue has gone up by 146% from 8.9 million to 21.8 million. Obviously, part of that's come through the acquisition of Infotech, which is a business we acquired in January this year. We've actually managed to achieve 41% organic growth underneath all that, which we're very proud of. The number of connections to our JOURNEO portal, which is a software and services application, grew very, very strongly. Actually, last year went from 4,000 to 10,000 connections. And in the first half of this year, it's increased by a further 2,000. So we're now up to 12,000 vehicles connected to this, all generating monthly recurring revenue. And we've seen a pretty substantial increase in our profit from 170,000 in the same period in 2022 through to now 1.7 million. And as I said, that as a result of the sort of the activities and the interest in our applications, our pipeline of future opportunities is growing and is actually becoming now quite substantial. So I think at this point I'll hand over to Nick and he can run through the sort of interim results in a bit more detail.
Okay, so as Russ mentioned, revenue was up 146% year on year to 21.8 million. Again, as Russ said, on an organic basis, we were up 41% to 12.5 million. So it's a strong growth in the core. Gross profit was up 96% to 6.4 million. Again, looking organically, we were up just over 20% to 3.9 million. Margins were down slightly from last year, but we do see that coming back in H2 and particularly into next year as well. We flowed down very well into underlying PBT and PBT. So we were 2.5 million at underlying PBT and 1.7 million at PBT. Cash, very, very strong. So we closed the half with 11.3 million. Some of that is advance payments from customers. So about 3.5 million is advance payments, but just shy of 8 million is our own cash as at the close of the half. EPS obviously increased about 4 times. So we've obviously issued new shares and profit went up. So we were at 8.72 pence. And also last week we announced the acquisition of MultiQ. So we used our own cash for that, which was 2.1 million euros on the day, and there's 0.4 million of deferred over the next 2 years. In the bottom right, as we stated at the time, we invested 0.8 million in R&D during the half, and all of that has ultimately passed through the P&L. We do capitalise some, but we also amortisation is pretty much matching capitalisation. So 0.8 million has passed through the P&L, and the PBT is obviously after the write-off of the R&D. Operationally, again, so as Russ mentioned, we completed the ITI acquisition in January for 8.7 million. That's 8.2 million cash and 500,000 shares. And there's a deferred element to that as well, which will be paid next year. Portal connections, again, as Russ mentioned, we were up to 12,000. So just in the 6-month period, we moved from 10,000 to 12,000. Since the acquisition of Infotech, we have invested 0.4 million in a new surface mount production technology, and that will benefit the group, not just Infotech, in terms of the manufacturing capacity that we now have. Airports, we already had 5 airports, and we moved to our 6th airport during the half. So we now have East Midlands Airport, and also we're embracing the new Arctic standards for our technology as well. And just close ESG, we've moved further forward with it, and we'll have a much further update in the full year report next year. This slide, graphically, we're on the right hand side. We're showing the growth in the different segments in the business. So the core existing Journeo business is fleet and passenger. So within fleet, we were up 61% for revenue in the half. Passenger was up 16%. You could take these graphs back another 2 years, and it would show a very, very similar picture. The bottom right, the blue bar shows the addition of Infotech. So we've gone up to 12.5 million as a Journeo, and then we've added an extra 9.3 million on with Infotech, which is the steep uplift you can see in the lines. Left hand side is the contracts we've announced during H1. So we had a lot of announcements. We've upped the threshold for what is announceable now. So I guess with less announcements. But first one is Transport for Wales. That was a pure software and services contract for across the entirety of Wales. The next 2 are both gained since we acquired Infotech, so they're hardware sales through Infotech. The Gatwick Airport renewal. Gatwick Airport was our first airport in 2017. We're 5-6 years into that now, and they've just extended the contract by another 5 years, and that's the announcement there. Transport for Wales and Cardiff, 1.6 million is displays across Cardiff that will benefit from the software that we are developing or have sold as part of the first announcement. Cross Country is a renewal of pure software and services to Cross Country, so it's an existing contract and it's an extension there. Arriva is one of our framework customers. They extended their framework by another year, and that's our estimation of revenue that we will take from it in the next 12 months. And the final one is Northern Trains, which again was another win through Infotech post-acquisition.
Okay, great. Thanks, Nick. This next slide is a sort of snapshot of the people that we're working with. There's some obviously fabulous reference customers in here, ranging from Outfront Media, which is our customer in New York City that we're working with for the Mass Transit Authority, through with Siemens and Telent, sort of rail applications, sort of through the airports and most of the UK's PTOs, and sort of bar across the bottom is a sort of just a snapshot. We have, in addition to 12,000 vehicles connected to our platform, we have 5,000 displays around the UK that we're managing, and in situations we're able to use those for sort of public service messaging, or for timetable variations in the event of road closures or diversions, those sorts of things. We're up to about 30% of the buses in the UK are connected to our Journeo portal. That's growing all the time. And then we've got these 2 metrics really, 2.19 million passengers every day relying on the Infotech rail displays. And they've got just under 1,500 of the 2,500 stations around the UK equipped with Infotech displays. Not all of the 2,500 have any form of active passenger information displays. So of those that have some form of passenger information systems, Infotech is installed on 80% of them, and it's now on over a third of the underground. And this number is actually now slightly out of date because we prepared this ahead of us completing the MultiQ acquisition. But we're now up to 175 people in Journeo as we continue to scale up. I just really wanted to recap on this slide, which is really about market drivers, but this is actually why we're here, why we feel this is a really interesting area to build our solution and to generate shareholder value. And it's coming from some of the sort of mega trends that are taking place, things like urbanization and the sort of overriding arch to, or need in fact, to decarbonize public transport, along with then some of the effects of the demographic changes and how that's kind of impacting the markets that Journeo is serving. Is this leading to more congestion and the requirement for more sort of interconnection and interoperability of the systems that are used either on the vehicles or in the sort of infrastructure around the towns and cities? And what we've been doing effectively is creating the technical capabilities to link these disparate or fragmented systems together in a kind of open platform way. So we enable local authorities and fleet operators to unlock themselves from proprietary lock-ins. And we've been doing that really ahead of the catalyst or the impetus that's been coming from government. So the growth that Nick's mentioned to you has really been coming about from legacy integration ahead of the funding kicking in. On the bottom right-hand side of this deck, we perhaps should have made these characters a bit larger, is there's some very, very substantial government fundings coming in. And if I just pick on the sort of, a couple of them, the Bus Service Improvement Plan, a number of you I'm sure will have heard. And this is effectively where the government have invited local authorities and passenger transport operators to come together to form enhanced partnerships and present plans that will lead to greater patronage of public transport. Obviously, and to do this, they need to increase the safety and frequency of the bus service, but also the whole amenity around that. And that's now starting to happen, and that we're going to see that having a number of impacts, not just in the markets that Journeo is operating in, but also in some of the traffic light priorities and pedestrianisation of inner cities. And the City Regional Sustainability Transport Settlement grant, that's actually even larger, that's 5.7 billion. And that's going to 20 or so local authorities. And they've got very, very substantial funding. Some of them are in the hundreds and hundreds of millions. And that's the other side of the, if you like, the fleet part of it. That's about increasing the lighting, new sort of sustainable bus shelters, cycle counting, pollution detection, a whole suite of applications, and Journeo is well positioned to benefit from that. So just to recap, the growth that we've delivered really over the last sort of 18 months or so has been largely ahead of these market stimuli. We are now starting to see sort of early signs of this now coming in some of the programs, as I said, with some of the streetlight applications and also in the vehicle orders. The next slide really is about where Journeo is in terms of its evolution. So we set ourselves some ambitious goals to create both a scalable technical platform on which to build our applications, which are largely built around Microsoft Azure for our cloud applications, but also build a scalable business where we've got strength in depth in terms of our management, but also in our technical services, our development, our marketing, and our HR. And we renamed the company Journeo at the end of 2019 and started then in this expansion program. And we've got a few landmark events which are quite salient actually in our development. So in 2020 was really the start of the Transforming Cities Fund. Of the first 60 million or so that was allocated to that, we won 3 million of it, and that really kick-started some of the uptake in our new multicolour LED and low energy displays. Moving into 2021, we then secured the contract at Stansted Airport, which was a sort of follow-on to the initial contract we had in Gatwick Airport, where we actually operated as a systems integrator there, and we built our airport busing solution out of our own displays, but bought in third-party software. And what we found as we did that was that it didn't really do what was required. It satisfied the customer, and yes, we got paid and everything was good, but we realized that it was actually another layer, and that was actually dealing directly with the airport authority. So we actually completely rewrote the code ourselves, and then Gatwick started to evangelize that into the marketplace and show that to a number of international and UK airports. And we're delighted, obviously, with Stansted, where they actually selected that technology. And as you probably know, that we're actually now up to 7 airports. So in addition to Gatwick, we have Stansted, Bristol, Heathrow, which is currently the largest, Dublin Airport and East Midlands, and there are more to come. And in 2022, we actually started to roll out these fleet-wide deployments of our edge-connected software as a service platform, and started to deepen the range of applications that we can monitor across it. And that really has driven quite a lot of growth, and it's something actually we're really proud of, because we've built more and more applications into the SaaS platform. And we decided that that was the right moment for us to commence our M&A work. We've had a sort of pipeline of potential acquisitions that we've been monitoring for quite some time. But as our confidence grew in terms of achieving the market expectations and our financial goals, we felt that it was the right time to really press on. And in 2023, in January 2023, we completed a 7.3 million placing in order to acquire Infotech. And that completed actually on the 18th of January. And at the same time, our organic business was also continued to take off. We secured us this contract, which Nick has said, for the whole of the Welsh country to provide a real-time application for them. And continued with the development on our SaaS applications. And we also maintain our interest in the mergers and acquisition. And immediately following the end of June, that accelerated and culminated actually in the acquisition of MultiQ just over a week ago. But we've also made some quite significant announcements on purchase wins, largely actually in our transport infrastructure, which we sort of refer internally to as our passenger business. So 4.25 million there, but again, with a lot of interest. The next slide is really about MultiQ. Why might that fit? You know, we're very keen not to diversify this business. We've got a very focused capability, and we're executing our strategy very seriously. But MultiQ actually isn't a diversion. We've been working with MultiQ for 5 years. They provided some of the content management display systems for our first airport at Gatwick, and we've worked with them ever since. The team in Denmark, actually, which is a business that we acquired, was a real-time specialist within MultiQ Group. MultiQ was a larger business that also had display applications in retail space. And in May 2022, a Swedish company called Vertiseit, which is a retail digital media business, acquired MultiQ Group for its retail content management, and planned to divest all hardware. And the first example of this actually was a decision to divest the MultiQ ATS, which is based in Denmark. And we've been talking to them more or less continuously. But as we knew that the Infotech acquisition was going to complete at the turn of the year, we didn't actually want the distraction of having another acquisition too early in that cycle. We actually wanted to bed Infotech in, get to know the team, get the integration programs underway. We've been working on that for about 7 or 8 months. And as we passed through the half year, we felt that we did have the capacity to absorb MultiQ into our business. So we acquired that last week. and we're now starting the post-acquisition integration, which we think will take us another sort of 3 to 4 months. So at this point in time, we're not anticipating there being another acquisition this year, but we do have a very attractive pipeline, and we've got a number of conversations at various stages. So it is actually something where we can see very strong organic growth in our business, but there are opportunities to, if you like, broaden our solution horizontally by dropping in bolt-on acquisitions that gives a line of sight to customer for our core technology. So that really is something that's very much on our agenda. MultiQ itself, there are 15 people, 1,200 square feet, based in Aarhus. They've got 1,300 buses running under their integrated bus information cloud-based application, and they're a full-line provider. In due course, MultiQ will be rebranded JOURNEO Europe, and it's going to be run by the managing director, Mads Hansen, who formed his own software business a number of years ago, and that got acquired by MultiQ, and him and the whole team in Denmark are staying with the company. And we think, actually, we've got a lot to learn from them. They're certainly more advanced in terms of the way that they handle SaaS and also their interconnectivity of their vehicles. But obviously, it's also then a route to market for all of JOURNEO's product, whether that's Infotech rail product, or in fact, it could be the JOURNEO's sort of agnostic video management applications. Okay, our strategy really to sort of bring all this together hasn't changed from day one. We actually want to become, really through sort of technology-enabled growth, a market leader in segments of the intelligent transport space as that space converges from proprietary or closed systems into open platforms, sort of ephemeral IoT type applications. And we're doing that from a base, a very strong base now, where we've created this scalable technology platform and a scalable business model that's delivering strong organic growth. We do intend to bolt in additional acquisitions to consolidate the position in some markets. We've seen a greater interest in our software and our services, and that's driving up our recurring revenue. And we are tracking this internally, and it's become a major focus of our KPIs internally. And next year, we will begin to expose our annual recurring revenue and our SaaS revenue. And we're pushing into what we call thematically linked adjacent markets, where at the moment we're being approached by businesses looking to potentially resell our technology into their marketplaces. And we're having some discussions about that and may well do some of that. But where it actually is something that we can absorb, it may be in our interest actually to acquire the company rather than increase the company's value by giving it access to our technology. And sort of examples of the areas that we're interested in are hazardous goods, and that includes military applications, fuel distribution and explosive powders, and some very specialist areas of commercial vehicles and plant type vehicles. And the whole model is an integrated offering where we're not a pure software company and we're not a box shifting hardware company. We're a modern advanced systems integration business that has some of its own hardware where you can't buy the alternative or comparative product. And it's the same sort of thing with our services. So we believe we've got a very highly scalable business model. And that's a sort of a quick introduction to where we are with our interims and what our strategy is and how we're delivering. We're really pleased with the first half. As I said, we're on track for a very strong performance for this year, and it looks very good for 2024 and 2025. So I'll hand you back over to Paul.
That's fantastic. Rusnik, thanks indeed for the presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, do please continue to submit your questions using the Q&A tab just situated on the right-hand corner of the screen. Just while the team take a few moments to review those questions submitted today, I'd like to remind you the recording of the presentation, along with a copy of the slides and the published Q&A, can be accessed via your investor dashboard. Nick, Russ, as you can see, we've had a number of questions submitted, both pre-submitted and during today's presentation. So if I may just ask you to click on that Q&A tab, start at the top, read out the question where appropriate to do so, and I'll pick up from you at the end.
Okay, we'll take it in turn. So shall I have a go at this one, or do you want to have a go at it?
You go first.
Okay,
Yep.
this is one. Okay, I can't actually see who that's from, but so regarding the medium-term revenue target of 70 million, which we mentioned on the call in April, could we confirm that we're still on course for this, and also is there a target margin which accompanies that? Absolutely. So where we're modelling the 70 million, that was obviously ahead of the acquisition. Actually, this is from, yes, it's from Daniel. So good question, Daniel. We were sort of looking out into the marketplace and saying, well, if we can get this right and our technology is adopted and we can build out our footprint, where could we get this business to in the sort of medium term? And we sort of, at that point, we're thinking in a 3 to 5 year timescale. And we figured we could get it to about 70 million with a sort of double-digit operating margin. And the reason we felt that was that it would be through a combination of our hardware and our services with the software layer inside them. And obviously, we've delivered strong organic growth, as we've already shown. And the Infotech acquisition has already taken us way past the sort of half of this. And so what we actually said in our trading update was that we were targeting revenues of about 50 million in 2025. And therefore, yes, to answer your question directly, we are absolutely on track to get to the 70 million in the timescale that we'd indicated. And also, in terms of the margin, we think that is absolutely addressable. As we push into some of the development markets that we're in. So we believe that we can deliver that, and we are determined to deliver it. Okay. Over to
Next one is with the problems of funding within local authorities, picking Birmingham, are we seeing any knock-on impact in revenues now and in future opportunity pipelines? Quick answer is no. We've seen no impacts from existing customers or pipeline. I think Russ mentioned many of the funding pots there. They're protected, so a local authority that's struggling would not, we wouldn't lose those funding pots as a result. So no, we've seen no knock-on impact at all.
Okay. Okay, so please explain the portion of revenue which is coming from hardware and software. That's probably best for you, I think, that one.
Okay, so yeah, please explain proportion of revenue from hardware and software. So we've not split it out, as Russ said. We intend to split it out in more detail with the full year. We're heavily weighted towards hardware. In terms of recurring revenue is a little over 10% of us in the half. Historically, well, last year it was a bigger proportion, but with the turnover from Infotech, that's dropped the proportion, although the real value has actually gone up. We do have some contracts kicking in shortly, which actually make a significant difference to our mix towards software. So from an ARR perspective, we will have a very, very much larger number at the end of this year than we did at the start of the year. And again, that will come out in more detail in the annual report.
Okay, the next one, this is from Samuel. Are you seeing further segments of the market that you can enter organically or via acquisition, especially overseas? Yes, we are. We're receiving approaches from a number of people in the marketplace. They're not in the, so they currently are not customers that we're addressing. So these are in what we call adjacent applications. And we have sort of conversations at a number of levels there, including providing technology to them or potentially acquiring them. We can see opportunities there, but we actually are being very careful that we don't overtrade. What we wanted to do is obviously, since Infotech came into the business, is obviously enable Infotech to flex and to grow. We're doing the same sort of thing with MultiQ as we bring that into the business, and that will shortly be renamed, say, JOURNEO Europe. Then there are a number of other areas where we can get into organically, and we just have to be very careful, because if that would place any demands on our research and development, then we probably wouldn't do it, because our pipeline and our order books are really strong. So we have enough in front of us really for the next 18 to 24 months without doing anything particularly speculative developmentally. However, if it's a resale of a technology into an adjacent market via effectively reskinning a website or rebranding some of our products, then yes, we could do that, and we are looking at some opportunities to do that. So the final point actually about the overseas, that actually is something that is getting a lot of debate around the board table within JOURNEO, and that's large because of obviously we have a contract in the US, and we have some customers in France and Sweden and obviously Denmark and Iceland now. So we're actually looking at what else we could do, possibly through licensing our software or from white labeling. So the early conversations, but yes, we actually think there's a lot of potential there. Okay.
I think the rest are similar to where we've been before.
Let's see if there's anything
for that.
There's similar sort of questions. Similar. Okay, so I've got that one. Nigel B. What would it take to get into a European airport? I've got to answer this quite cautiously, because Dublin actually is in Europe. But we do have some interest actually from airports overseas, much further afield actually than Europe. The plan will be that we'll actually work through the team in MultiQ to do that, because both the team in Stockholm and our team in Denmark are all multilingual, and we actually think that it would be more appropriate for them to deal with scaling up the airport operations. The team in Denmark actually have already done Copenhagen Airport. Obviously, this is with a different technology, JOURNEO's airport technology. So, do you want to scroll down, see if there's any? Most of these seem to be the same question, don't they? Okay. Do you want to have a go at that one, David H? Shall we go? Okay. Okay. Can we explain the Nordic expansion and how easy this pushes into mainland Europe, Germany, Poland, and what sort of opportunity do we see? We see a lot of interest actually within the Nordics. They tend to be more advanced than the UK market in terms of public transport. It's more deeply integrated, so that is some expertise, if you like, that we will now have access to through Mads and his team in Denmark. There's been some recent harmonisation of the ITXPT and the German standards, which actually also roll into Poland and the rest of Eastern Europe. So that's actually something that we do intend to be doing through our operation in Denmark, and that will absolutely involve Germany and potentially Southern Europe. So, okay, that's the last one. Is that last? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I think we hand back. Okay, well, hand back. I think that's all of them.
Fantastic. Look, thank you very much indeed, guys. And of course, any further questions, the company will be able to review those, and we'll publish responses where appropriate to do so on the Investor Meet Company platform. Russ, perhaps just before redirecting investors to provide you with their feedback, we know it's particularly important to you and the team, if I could ask you just for a few closing comments, please.
Okay, sort of closing comment. Obviously, initially, thank you very much for making time to listen to us. We're working very hard to obviously create this business and get a sustainable model that can scale, both in terms of its capabilities and also its geographic reach. We're not complacent. We paid a great deal of attention to detail to make sure that we do deliver the quality on time, on budget. But we're very pleased with how it's going. There's a lot more that we can do, and we're determined to meet the sort of expectations for this year and next year as we look forward. So thank you very much for your interest in us.
Fantastic. Russ, Nick, thanks indeed for updating investors today. Could I please ask investors not to close the session? Should be automatically redirected to provide your feedback in order the team can better understand your views and expectations. This will only take a few moments to complete and I'm sure is greatly valued by the company. On behalf of the management team of JOURNEO PLC, we'd like to thank you for attending today's presentation. This concludes today's session and good afternoon to you all.